Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Man, it's been a long time. I mean, it must be like 3 weeks since I've recorded, since I had so many in the queue. Dumped those out. The Chaos Report was the last one. Now it's 77 degrees out, and I am beyond happy. Well, listening to my voice, it sounds like I've got a really bad cold, or a cold. But I feel fine. It's weird. So, yeah, man, lots of stuff going on in the world, right? Finally, the people are doing things, and my God, there you go. This letter is not going to come save you. You got to get off your ass to do something. So instead of following the bullshit plan of sit on your ass, don't worry, we got everything handled, people are actually doing stuff, and oh, man, change is happening. Oh, wow, that's cool. I mean, they're fighting back and all other stuff, whatever. So today I thought I would, obviously talk about a little bit of that stuff, but put it in the context of something a little bit more on point. I just hope to God my neighbors don't have any performances scheduled in their backyards. It's one of the benefits of recording at night. Obviously, everything's really quiet. Let's see, a little update from my end. I've got about 2 months left in this location after 19 years. So I have been, part of the reason why I'm recording a little slower is that I've just been, going through my stuff. Again, I really follow my own philosophy. As I tell you guys that simplification is the way to roll. That's what I do. I just keep my possessions down to a minimum. Believe me, I zoomed all the way up to your normal sort of family house, and then finally just realized, man, what do I need this crap for? And my philosophy has been for 20 years, if I don't use an object, if it's not a piece of memorabilia, something I've created or something my kid created, if I haven't used it in 10 years and I don't even think about it, it's gone. Boom. See you later. And if you think it has value, give it to somebody. Put it online, say, hey, come get this. It's out front. And believe me, they'll come. It's cool. So I watched The Body Snatchers this last year. I believe it was made in 56 or 58. The original black and white one. And let me tell you, I always thought it would be some cheesy film, and it is like special effects guys are like of today are blown away by how incredible this film was. It's like a really long Twilight Zone. I guess 2 to 3 years before any Twilight Zone's ever released. So it's high quality actors. I guess we got a little wind today. Of course, I start to record. But the production value is great. The script is great. It doesn't just Michael Bay through the story. There's moments where they pause and talk about the minutia of exactly what you'd want to kind of hear, And there's a reason why I'm mentioning this today. This doctor gets yanked into this thing because some people in his town start to say, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? No, I didn't hear about her. Well, she thinks that her uncle's no longer her uncle. What do you mean? He's right there mowing the lawn. No, she says he's different. She says that he's used to do this, used to do that, and no longer does it. A little boy doesn't think his mother's his mother. And it all has to do with this human connection that if they didn't have, they wouldn't be able to discern this different shift because they had such a good connection with these people. So imagine today, those shifts could occur and no one would notice. I mean, on average, right? Other than like a 9-year-old girl going, oh, my mother didn't do a TikTok video dancing like a whore on the internet, Other than that, you wouldn't notice the difference, right? But then the doctor bumps into the psychologist or psychiatrist of this town. And he says, man, I got to talk to you. I got a few people that I'm going to start referring to you that I need to refer to you. He says, don't tell me. Someone says not their cousin, not their mother, their father. He's like, you know about this? He says, oh, yeah, man, I'm getting flooded by this whole thing. He goes, well, what is it? And this is where we hear the term mass hypnosis. A situation where, because the group think is so strong, everybody's catching the illness, everyone has the issue. I think I'll just repeat real quickly. When I was in pharma, back in 1993 to 96, there was a case that came through where people in Europe were catching whiplash. And it may not have occurred in those years, but someone reported it at one of our big meetings. They caught an illness that is really an injury. You have to have, force blunt trauma to catch this, right? You don't catch it from somebody. You get hit by something and you've got this condition, right? The damage to your spinal cord or something. Well, now, most of you, if I just said, hey, have you ever heard of mass hypnosis? You'd say, yeah. And then if I said, well, could you come up with some examples? Oh, yeah. It's some of them are really subtle, again, as the war machines of the time were accentuated, then a particular war era thing. There's the Nazi one. There's the nuclear era thing. There's the Japs are bad. There's the Vietnamese are bad. Like, just whoever they point their little gun at in the media, everybody gets this issue. And there's reverse ones where it's like smoking is good. I don't think anyone smoked and had their health increased. Back in the day, you had everyone coming out of the 1800s growing up to be the parents and the grandparents, and all of a sudden their kids start smoking. And they had to have been able to look backwards and go, Jesus, grandma, grandpa, my dad and my mom are completely healthy on average, and I'm starting to get emphysema. I'm starting to get cancer. Right? The amount of mass hypnosis to get people to go along with the trend is unbelievable, and we are actually there today, right? It doesn't matter how many times the CDC says something doesn't protect you or does protect you. The people using these implements don't care. They say certain medicines initially. Well, it's almost like the Pope and the Catholic Church during the Inquisitions. They wanted to force their religion down your throat. And so they hired mercenaries around the corner to grab you, persecute you, and kill you. And so that the church could say, we didn't do anything to anybody. We didn't kill anyone. So how does the pharmaceutical companies work? Well, they get the press to do it. They get some dipshit school teacher to say stupid things. And then, of course, the mass hypnosis works because there's a group of people, I should say, not everybody. There's a group of people that understand how to think for themselves. They understand that the privileged shoulders that they're standing on, unfortunately, have, mass graves that are a result of that freedom being fought for. Sometimes the victims, sometimes the heroes that stop the bankers from doing what they're doing. But, again, a lot of stuff is not what you think it was. Wars are orchestrated. We know this for a fact. The Revolutionary War, even though maybe at some point the Rothschilds got in on both sides, it was a real war. It really was. It was Europe against the colonists. And believe it or not, the colonists were the Yankees, and the South Democrats were Europe. I guess to you this way. But now, a mass hypnosis is only possible through how do I put this? Through the mechanism by which you can spread mass information. Right? How else could it be? I mean, if I can't tell you that I got this whiplash and you want to catch it because you want an excuse for people to go, then you're not going to catch it. So the more that they can create platforms that can instigate communication, by God, they could have some, Illuminati guy sitting at a desk saying, yeah, you know what, I think that there's going to be, let's make this up, he's got a dartboard, right, and he's just throwing darts at things, eating cherries, grows a third arm, whatever it is, and then so he's tick, 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 he sends a telegram out, and it goes out to all the mass media. New report says that Stanford University, Caltech has managed to do this. Japan is eating turds that are made of flesh. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, the absolute scientifically impossible thing, supported by those that have not a scientific bone in their body, starts to become a reality. Just hysterically stupid stuff. We have it all day long, every day. And then, today, we've got extra layers. So you've got the press that is basically violating the Nuremberg Code to the max. You've got government doing the exact same thing. Then you have corporations that are owned by these bankers that do the same thing. And so you're on a plane and a flight attendant is just a Nazi soldier basically saying, I'm following orders put that pair of panties on your face or I'm going to throw you off the plane. And then, of course, the dipshit cop comes in and he's willing to enforce it because he thinks he's scientific. Man, I didn't study in school, man, but I got to throw a guy off a plane because he didn't wear a pair of panties on his face. And he's just like, oh, God, I got this bruise on my back. You see how that works? It's zero integrity stuff. But I'll tell you what, ignorance is fueling this at all stages of the game. If someone screwed up their life and they wish they had taken a few more classes, they look at the world and it's completely confusing, and then someone promises them if they engage in this protocol of behavior publicly, maybe they're a nurse or doctor killing people with the protocol, which is just going on like crazy. I mean, they have murdered millions of people in this world with this protocol. Millions and millions of people that would have walked straight out of the hospital had they just not been given, remdesivir or whatever it is, right? And so today it is a 4D chess game of the platform psychosis or platform hypnosis, a mass platform hypnosis. But it's at all levels of the flawed human character. And the thing is if you're listening to my voice and you're like, well, I am not that kind of person at all. I mean, I don't have the need to do this. I can think for myself. My God, you played the whole game right. Doesn't mean you played it perfect. Maybe you did. But every level of your self-awareness, your empathy towards man, your scientific ability to go out and either have found the knowledge because you already studied it before all this crap happened, or to get it after it was introduced to you. It's all those levels. You can lay your head down on a pillow at night and fall asleep. And you're not terrified of the world the next morning. You're going to be annoyed by it for sure, but you won't be terrified of it, right? So I think there's a tremendous amount of this going on. I don't know about you, but the way I see it, when I look out into the public and I see, again, probably good people, they can't all be bad. I mean, my God, the whole world would be a different place if everybody everyone who was gullible to wear a pair of panties on their face to protect themselves against something that is, probably 100th of the size of the hole that is in a normal cloth pair of panties, they would tear the world apart if they were truly evil people trying to do things. They're just stupid, man, And I think they're stupid at this point because they've been told the truth, and they just, for their own weaknesses, their own problems, they can't deal with it. But let's just break it down real quick so we can understand each other just a little bit better. And again, this is probably not between the two of us. I mean, we have definitely dealt with these exact issues I'm going to mention, but I think overall, this is going to be the tool of the listener to deal with the frustration of the average public right now. And it's not a superiority thing, it's just straight up facts, right? One of the biggest frustrations I have is that in my whole life, I've been trying to be very honest with things. If someone gets overweight, they're overweight. It doesn't mean I don't like them. It just means, the heavier set guy right there, that beanpole guy right there, or whatever, the hippie looking dude, or whatever. It's just no slang. I mean, there's no slurs. It's just we are able to say what we are, and it's okay. And the fact is that if they can be who they are and we love them 100%, then man, it feels better. And they can make a choice if they want to be something different. So, again, this is not a superiority complex episode where, hey, let me tell you how much better you are. I think that you're doing better at the game currently, if this is the case. That's just my opinion, right? But let's do the old time travel game. We go back to like 1950 America. I can't speak for your country. You let me know what you think. An average kid growing up was uninhibited by the world, especially in little towns. Now, they did have in the United States, again, the nuclear scare. We did have a Korean War for a little while. But the amount of publicity that the Korean War had on kids was very limited. Now, if you went to the movies, the military would buy little movies in front of the movies, and there were cartoons. Walt Disney would help, champion World War II, what have you, thinking he's being a patriot, not realizing he's being a shill for the bankers. But a lot of people fall into those traps. Again, if you're not evil, you can't conceive of evil as easily. But the kids growing up and their life, for better or for worse, is a hell of a lot easier than the life of a kid today. But now imagine we have this next 70 years that's transpired. That's all I want to say. Sorry. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So imagine that you're born like me in this sort of 70s era thing. And then I grew up through the 80s, and the 80s are pretty cool. And then you get into the 90s. Now, I am now an young adult in the 90s, and I'm making my own paycheck and I'm controlling my own world. But I'm looking at the kids in the 90s, and the big transformation in America in the 90s was that little kids would talk back to adults, which was a character in the movie Bad News Bears. There was this little blonde-haired kid, and he would, I think he's from Brooklyn in real life, but he would just talk back to the parents and stuff, and that was his kitschy thing in the movie, is like, oh my God, look at that kid talk back to the parents. And by the 90s, it was like, if you can find a kid that behaves, it was the opposite polarity, right? So now, if you're a kid who is trying to behave, you have a choice. You have basically a choice as a kid when it starts getting rough in America, maybe around the world. You either fight back and represent yourself, or you cower down. And the thing is that it always boiled down to going outside was either fun or it was scary. I grew up in 20 years, at least 20 years of like going outside was fun. And then as the world becomes a more bully-infested place, your parents are worried about drive-bys or whatever. You don't have to live in a bad district, man. You're not going outside anymore. Well, that makes you an introvert. What do you do how much media do you gain inside versus media that you gain outside? You gain it when you're inside. And so the system is to drive you in the house and make you watch something on TV for as long as you possibly can. And then it's video games. Video games come out and they're very organic and they're made by wonderful people until the military figured out and the elite figured out that, Jesus, we got to start buying up these companies and changing the SJW quality of these games. World of Warcraft, like I said, killed itself. It goes SJW. They bring in these SJWs to design the game. And what does an SJW do? They think they're great at everything, but they're good at nothing. And their level of shitty expertise is unbelievable. I mean, they think they're 100 out of a, fucking scale 1 to 10, but they're actually a 0.001 in the talent scale. And so then you get this situation where games die and they can't even figure it out. And then they go in the fanboy circuit inside their head and they blame the players. Well, you just don't know a good game when you see one. It's like, no, for 13 years it was good until the old baby or Gen Xers left, and then you millennials came in, and we're more than happy to let you make a great game, but you just can't do it on average, right? So the beautiful thing is the military moved in about 2002, 2003. There was actually a captain of the army that got busted for infiltrating this game company and getting kickbacks and all this other stuff. I again bumped into the woman in 2003 from the British Area 51. She interviews me to get a bunch of answers out of me of how can we make kids lust for war using video games. She probably wasn't supposed to tell me that on point, but that was the case. When I started educating her about the Bilderberg group through her email, poof, she disappears, right? But initially replied back, oh, I'm very interested in this, send me everything you can, and then poof, it disappeared. She's not allowed to talk to someone who's awake. But it was revealed that that's what they do. All right. So again, the more you're inside their mechanisms. If they can make a great movie, a Marvel series, and they just inject just a little bit of stuff inside your brain, here and there, then they win. Because a lot of it's just seeding your mind, right? Seeding your mind so that you can find another thing and another thing and another thing. It's a gateway drug into their agendas. Now, the 90s are there, and they're trying to infect the household. Then the 21st century starts, and now this internet thing really starts to take off. They weren't worried about my generation with the internet because it would take them a little while to see all the organic data come in to figure out what was possible to change. Once they got the indicators in from these systems, they were able to mastermind the DARPA-funded, DARPA-created Facebook with this fake guy, Mark Zuckerberg, who, I'm sure he knows how to code a couple lines of BASIC. He's not the genius there, just like Bill Gates wasn't the genius from Microsoft. All these are fake straw men put forth. The two guys from Stanford that create Google, it's all bullshit. It's just complete lies. These people are fake constructs. They're real human beings. And of course, every time they get MK Ultra'd and they age 10 years, some fucking moron goes online and says they're a goddamn clone. Hey, people age. People change. Look at my first episode in 2015 and tell me I look exactly the same. It's close, but it ain't the same thing. The reason why they have those dead eyes is because they have become a liability, right? Like Zuckerberg is a liability to DARPA. If he were to get up there and say the wrong thing during some Mossberg interview, this is all bullshit, I am fake, this is all DARPA, well, then the whole jig could unfold. It probably wouldn't, but there's a risk there, right? And so that's why he shows up just dead-eyed looking straight ahead. When he's in the Senate, he ain't worried about answering the wrong question to lose his stock options. He's worried about answering the wrong question and get his balls cut off as soon as he walks out the door, quite literally. Having a little airplane accident, that's what he's worried about. When you're a traitor and a scumbag like these guys, you're the thief in the night, right? You'll go into a missionary to get healed up from killing some guy, right? So they don't even know you're a murderer. They'll heal you up, and then you'll rob them blind before you leave. I mean, that's a Zuckerberg, that's a Gates. So the platforms come out in a very basic manner. The initial goal of these platforms to help latch onto you for a psychosis type situation, for a hypnotic situation, is to get you addicted. So you don't try to push the envelope too quickly. The military wanted everyone's face in a database. Even though there are plenty of driver's license and that kind of stuff, they wanted a ton of data. Plus, they wanted people that didn't have driver's license to get on there so that they could cross-stitch them together and figure out how everybody's connected with very basic AI. Okay, that is reading your posts and reading your text messages between each other within these platforms. They're able to discern whether or not your relationship is highly personal or only incidental, whether or not you're in business together, whether or not you're doing something illegal. It's 50 states in America. Some states have marijuana legal, some don't. And so if some guy is sitting in Kansas talking about buying a bag of weed through Facebook chat, you don't think they can figure that out? I mean, nothing's going to happen to you with weed. But it's one of these things, if you were just to be flippant and say a politician should die or be hurt, oh my God, there's little things going off inside your social profile in the big database of who you are as a human being. And you should also realize that there's a histogram on you too, which is a history, a graph over history, right? And so imagine you've got a line graph, and when you're very, very upset because something occurred, your willingness to stand up and maybe hurt people to get things to change goes way, way up. And then the life, gets a little bit better. They release some regulations and gas prices go down. And all of a sudden, boy, you're down off that scale, and your happiness graph is going up on the other side of this system. They're tracking every metric on planet Earth, right? Minority Report was a fictional book. But it immediately caught the attention of the authorities who said, oh my God, once we get the mechanism there's two mechanisms to Minority Report. There's the computer system that has the software written, tested, and ready to go to take the data in to figure out who you are as a human being and what your likelihood is, plus the lineage of your family, all your connections, all your friends. And then they have to get you personally and all those individuals addicted to a platform such that they can harvest the data into the analytics, right? But let's look at the shift. The shift is that back in the day, social media was nothing but an input device, right? You put your data in, you showed your friends what you were all about, and they told you what they were all about. Everyone's lying about their life is better than someone else's life and all this other bullshit. And then there was a shift. I'm not exactly sure when the hell this occurred, but it definitely was in full steam by 2015. Which is the corporations started telling you how to behave. Started censoring you if you didn't go along with their handed down ordinance of how this world is supposed to run. Remember, I keep telling you folks, and again, I'm going to give you a shame on you. Ready? If you have not watched James Caan's Rollerball 1975, and I don't give a crap if you got to pay $10 to $20 to view it online, you should find a venue where you can buy it. Like Apple lets you buy it, right? And download the file to your hard drive. This movie is your near future. Corporations run the world. And you need to see this film because it gives you a simulation plus a character arc in this movie that is happening at this stage, right? The individual is supposed to be crushed. No individual is supposed to show the public that they can be amazing pretty much by themselves. Even though they're part of a team, they have a distinct capability by themselves. That has to be destroyed. Everything has to be the us. And it really, I think it stems from the Twilight Zone Obsolete Man with Burgess Meredith. That's another great precursor, and that one you have to get on Paramount Plus. That the whole world has been balkanized into corporations, and they're telling this main character what to do. It's not a government system. It is a governed system of corporations. In this movie, the main character's wives can just be... All the characters that play Rollerball can have their wives and girlfriends stolen from them because an executive wants to sleep with them or marry them. Okay, so social media on all levels gets into this preachy bullshit. And you might say, well, because it went in two different stages, right? The first stage was they gave free space to organizations that are going to advertise right in the middle of your feeds what you're supposed to do with your life feeds. And then when something starts to click, they start to try and enforce this craziness, which of course the last 2 years are all about this whole thing. And you try to fight back. You try to post something truthful. You know it's the truth. You might have even been there when these events take place. They do what's called fact-checking on top of you. And then all of a sudden you get this change of how things work. And that creates this control apparatus on top of you. That if you're susceptible to that, and remember, repetition is the highest form of brainwashing. And so you're like, man, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. But then it's just like, without even noticing, just scrolling down your feed, if you stay on top of these platforms, which again, you have a lot of truth on there. A lot of times you're going in like me and you're trying to take temperature of what the public thinks about a particular issue. You hate the platform. You wish you could delete it off your telephone. Technically you could, but you might have a business on there. You might have a show like mine, right? Maybe it's the only way that you can communicate with other friends that aren't very technical. And like some of my friends, they have their whole life story up there because before they realized this was a bad organization, they posted every photograph of their entire life up there, and they didn't save it on the local hard drive. And they're not technical enough to get that download from Facebook, which is unbelievable when you get the download of your entire account from Facebook. It gives you every private chat you've ever had with anyone. I mean, it's amazing. You get a big scrape. And I believe that tool is probably made so that they could sell it to, the Cambridge Analytics, right? But now imagine the other half of this. So say you're awake and you're seeing them fact check your stuff and you're pissed and you know what the truth is, generally. What about everyone else that's not awake? Then they see you post things that are truthful. Then they see the corporation stamp it with, guess why this isn't true? Click the button to see why. But it's a weak-minded person who, during that phase of growing up, they went inside because they were scared of the world outside. It's just a generational thing. And so now they're looking at you getting admonished because you posted the truth. And so immediately what they do is they click the see why button. But instead of getting frustrated with the see why information, they commit that to memory as truth. So every time you post one thing up there that violates the standards up there, say 50 people see it, and they end up, on average, let's say 80% of those 50 go up there and get taught the opposite. So they love when you post some of that stuff, which is why they leave it up there with the see why it's not true button, so that you can be admonished from them. Because everyone who believes that you're a crazy person is not going to do any business with you. They're going to avoid you, can't date their daughters, whatever. And you might be like, well, screw that, screw them. Well, eventually it'll become the overwhelming majority of folks. Which is why don't follow letter movements online. Follow your God-given instinct to correct wrongs. So you see how ancestral this gets. You see how people think they're winning sometimes, and they're actually creating a bigger loss in a situation. That's why for me, in my long journey of being awake and going through so many different experiences of trying to find quality people to have conversations with, one of the things that happened that was completely organic on my end, not planned at all, was that when I first got on Facebook, it was 2009, and it was an Alphabet agency friend of mine who hadn't worked for them for 25 years, 20 years, had lured me into getting into it. And later I started laughing about it. I was like, of course that's the guy that, invited me. He was the guy who first invited me to Facebook. But I got up there on my personal Facebook and I was posting all this, stuff. Al Gore stuff being wrong and da-da-da-da-da. And I, definitely got a little squabbles online with a few people. It was amazing finding out friends that would heart it. Actually, I don't think there was hearts at the time, but they would definitely say, good job spreading this information. Then I realized, oh my God, I'm doing this in front of other professionals that I've connected to, and that I don't want them to really think about me on a personal level. I want them to think about me on a professional level. So I fractured it. I made 2 different accounts. I knocked all my professional friends off this one, put them all in this one, and so I had 2. And then I was like, this is a pain in the ass, but I kept it up because I didn't have Deep Thoughts Radio yet. Or really, it was MK Ultra Radio. And so once we created the radio show, I realized, oh my gosh, we have harvested out of the airwaves people who want to hear this information, and the quality of the conversation went up drastically. So we did that for a year. Kyle moves north too far, and he has to ditch out of the project. So then I create this show, move all the listeners over. Then all of a sudden, boom, I found my buddies, my friends, which are all of you, my acquaintances. And so now we have quality conversations in a private environment. And so what I ended up doing was my personal account with all my personal buddies from high school and stuff. I basically got rid of them all one by one, invited them over to the second account I created. So I've got 3 accounts. And I could probably get rid of the first one at this point. I probably should. And so here I am. Now I've got this, hey, I'm just posting fun stuff over here. Let's just think fun thoughts, listen to great music. Here's some comedy. Here's some artwork from both myself and other people. And then deep inside this little page, we have our own little audience. And then, of course, other social media platforms came out in the last 2 or 3 years. And we have onboarded literally more independent ones than the official ones. At least we think we did. The word on the street is that Getter is a shilly platform owned by a bunch of liberals. So, and then Gab is supposed to be one of the most legit ones. Minds.com is one of the most pretty ones with less features. And 107daily.com literally is so poorly coded that if you click a link, it doesn't do anything. You have to say open tab. You have to right click it and say open new tab with this window. I mean, just pathetic fucking coding. And he wants membership fees, right? So you take your pick, man. Take your pick. And then Twitter, whatever. I mean, that's the worst platform on planet Earth. I mean, it has the lowest level of decent information, the most gullible people. Not saying that everybody on there is that way, but the entry level, folks that have been shown enough proof to change their mind at least about one thing are still on the fence on that platform. It's just really weird and nutty. Then you have Telegram, which is this weird kind of chat interface software. People are having a hard time figuring out, and I don't blame them. And they're all infiltrated. Every single one of those platforms is massively infiltrated by government employees, not only from our government, but other governments, to make sure that it is absolutely impossible to find truth. Like unequivocally, you cannot go to any platform and find truth. So now, think about that. You're in the middle of a world that is chaotically being infused with tons of misinformation. The most gullible people in the world, organic gullible people, will have the platform shovel a bunch of folks over to their account to see their account, see their feed, so they are more apt to organically subscribe to this individual. And so a complete moron will have 100,000 subscribers, but everything they say is inadvertently, mistakenly, for those who want to hurt the world. Now, a lot of those platforms actually are very interesting. They post things, but they don't have bots to reply because bots don't have the intellectual capability of faking conversations with the listener. So a lot of the stuff on Telegram that's very, disinfo related is they post a bunch of stuff, but they're either comments are turned off or comments are turned on, but the author of the content never replies because it is a bot. And some of it is just, it's unbelievable when you see, especially as a special effects person or a 3D person, like a real simple college, entry-level college UFO that's flying across the canyon. I saw one the other day and it says UFO portal caught on camera, and it's just the worst CG you've ever seen. The model itself is something that's been in tutorials all over the internet, and then it flies over and someone did this horrible portal door that opens up, and it's sitting there floating around too. That's the other funny thing. It's floating around because the guy he didn't stabilize the original footage. And then the UFO goes in the hole and the portal goes away, and then you got, 1,000 people replying, "Oh my God, I knew they were there," So, but there are technical social goals. And this is what's very, very interesting. There's technical social goals of individuals. We're all probably guilty. I don't really, guilty is the wrong word, but we've all been through this phase of being told things that are elevating status accomplishments within the human character that we haven't technically achieved yet. And then we want to go get those things because that'll complete us as a human being and make, at first, when you're young, there's usually a phase in your life, even if you don't care about what an individual thinks about you, you think about maybe society, and you want to be a good person, and you sometimes misequate these status symbol things with being a good person, such as becoming an intellectual was something in my family circle, right? I got one parent that could give a shit, and he and I get along really well. I got another parent that, oh my God, her whole thing is just wanting to be coffee intellectual, coffee intelligent, and it doesn't even matter the substantive nature of what will get that accomplishment. It is, if the information has zero integrity whatsoever, but it, in her brain, makes her think that she's intellectual with other people, she'll repeat that information 100% like it's truth. Because the end goal is the only addiction that she has. She doesn't have the integrity that a normal human being has. There's zero integrity with this individual. And there's a bunch of folks out there like that. And it is a handicap of the mind, because these people aren't evil. They never acquired a vocational aptitude to gain any level of empathy. They went off and got all their work in a left brain realm, which allowed their right brain to turn into a raisin, right? A dried up, dehydrated, desiccated grape. And so when it comes to caring about other human beings, it's only an emulation of a checklist, right? Imagine a parent that loves you because they're a good parent. They just do it naturally. There's nothing that is systematic about it. They just know. I remember what it was like to be a kid and have insecurities of whether my mom or my dad liked me. But a left brain person with a raisin right brain, they make love a checklist. Well, I hugged you today. I told you you were a good person today. Man, kids feel that shit in 2 seconds, man. But when you have a dysfunctional, rotted right brain, you don't have the capability, and this is very important to understand, they don't have the capability of knowing how useless their efforts are. And so they do this checklist, which is obviously super duper incomplete. You don't have a good checklist unless you remember what it was like to be a kid. And so they get frustrated because they went through the checklist, because everything in their whole life's been a checklist. They go through the checklist, and if you don't respond well to the checklist love, then they get extra angry at you, right? So anyway, we latch on to these stages, these sort of faux rite of passages. We want to be viewed as smart. Obviously, you don't want to be viewed as dumb. Not a lot of people want to marry and have kids with dumb people. You want to have the second level of just base intelligence, right? So there's smarts, right? You memorize and repeat shit so you can do good on the old Jeopardy, like I always say. Then you want to actually distill that through experience into wisdom/intelligence, okay? Then you become really good at things. And I'll give you a great example. Someone who learns a recipe on how to cook can cook that recipe probably fairly decently. There will never be a variation in the taste of that dish because they only follow the rules. Exactly this amount of that, this amount of that. Once a person who cooks starts to understand the full implications and dosages of a particular ingredient to inflict a taste on an individual, then they can say, you know what, I think everybody in the room who always eats my pizza likes the oregano or something I put on top. And they say that they do. So this time I'm going to add just a tad bit more than the recipe typically has. Then we'll see what they do. Just a little tiny bit more. And you serve it out. You don't tell anybody increase the oregano. You just want to listen to them. And then all of a sudden, kaboom, they're like, this is even better than before. And so maybe they hold at that point. Listen for other comments on various dishes that they serve. Oh, I love the way this tomato tastes and da-da-da-da. So they vary it and they become that wisdom-based chef versus that recital piano player chef. It's only following all the rules, right? So life is exactly like that. Life has taught you as a bunch of rules. Well, today the jig is up. The jig has been up for 20 years, if not 25 years. College degrees do not equal employment, period. So why run off and get yourself in $100,000 to $300,000 worth of debt for something that you can't, that will never cause an effect? Get rid of the debt. And what's really strange is I'm not sure how many decades that little lie continued on. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you got to go through it because the state will require you have that. If you want to be an attorney, you've got to learn how this process works, and you can't be that. But I mean, unless you're going up for those I don't know, heavier roads of education, you're a normal person trying to get a normal degree. And we have finally learned that we all learn differently. We do. Some people are stringers. They're the left brain, systematic, got to read a book from front to back. If I skip a page, I can't sleep at night. Got to follow the rules, and I'm a robot. And then you have your groupers. The people are like, just need the gist. Yeah, don't give me that whole list of your whole fucking life story today. What did you do today? Okay, so you went and got something to eat, and you called your mom. I don't want to hear about where you parked your car and how bad traffic was and exactly what you talked about with your mom. Just give me it. If I want to know, I'll dig into that thing. How do we do this technical thing? Well, what are we trying to do here? I already have so much wisdom about how to get this thing done in a particular technology or art or whatever. I don't need you to explain to me how to put the Band-Aid on. Just tell me you're bleeding, that kind of stuff, right? So there's two different hemispheres of folks. And then, of course, with the absolute mind, you get a third hemisphere of completely new thinking that you've never had before that has much bigger, much more three-dimensional thoughts. In fact, I would liken it to your left brain only sees 2D, your right brain only sees 2D. But when you merge the two together like a stereogram, boom, you start to see 3D in depth for the first time. And just think about seeing this world in 2D your whole life. Anybody who has lost an eye but had the eye can tell you it's a much different world. So the big challenge with this whole thing is the more you acknowledge the fact that a platform is a hypnotic source of information, meaning a television that now has integrated movies into it, of course, social media, that means every phone, every tablet you ever look in, every computer monitor you look in, as that information is being presented to you, it is influencing you and controlling you. Jeez. So our goal is to obviously stay out of any hypnosis that might be out there. Here, I'll tell you, if you ever follow that 17 movement bullshit online, okay, then we all were hypnotized by this thing. The guy talked in a way that seemed official, right? These cryptic comms, and someone probably had some education on how comms work, but talked in a cold gypsy reading technology, all allegorical, such that you could, it looks like prophet speak. And, you can see someone. I want to just throw up like a red flag for you guys. When you see someone online taking one of those ridiculous posts and then showing you a screenshot of some other bullshit, some other person's post on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and they're comparing a post number to a time of day in these posts, where they weren't really talking about a time of day on the first thing. It's the post number to the time of day, or how long a movie ran, or whatever. You are seeing someone still completely in over their head with this number movement bullshit. You know, a number movement isn't driving around Ottawa, Canada right now, right? A number movement isn't marching in the streets. And you know, I know there's because again, remember, 75% truth, 25% bullshit. Always remember that, okay? So we can't keep that myth alive because they fed us the 75% truth in the middle of the 25% bullshit. What would it matter if, I mean, you've seen it a billion times in movies. I mean, from Scooby-Doo to the most complicated murder mystery, James Bond, Alfred Hitchcock movie. Someone pretends to be someone's ally. They acknowledge a villain that's over there. And then they're leading you around, leading the main character around the problem. And then at the last second, it's a gun against the back of their head. It's the twist of the story. Santa Claus is actually the devil. And it's been done 1,000 times, if not 10,000 times in movies from all around the world. China's made movies like that. Japan's made movies like that. India's made movies like that. There's not a country alive that hasn't spun that 100 times. We have to be careful. I mean, the good news is we can do this. We can do this. This whole bullshit about enjoy the show. We got it all under control. That means sit on your hands, right? You know, I've been saying this a lot, but hey, man, no one's learning the lesson, so I'm going to say it again and say it again and say it again. Right? We're the ones actually affecting change, not some bullshit secret army that's fucked. It doesn't exist, okay? It doesn't exist. That's the way you need to operate every day of your life. It doesn't exist. Maybe it does, but fuck them. You know, they're not showing us anything. They're not throwing us a bone. The 17 guy didn't post anything after December 8th. Fuck that guy. Fuck the whole movement, right? What, do you have no faith in yourself? You have no faith in mankind? Well, if that's the case, then we've lost anyway. So what would be the point of saving the world if the only thing that happens after it's saved is a bunch of dickheads live in the world and run it right back into the ground? We wouldn't deserve to have the world saved. So the only way that we rehabilitate as a society is to figure out all the shit I'm saying on this episode and every other episode I've ever made, where we stop consuming. We stop spending money. We stop keeping up with the neighbors. We stop accumulating bullshit that we don't need. We stop giving tablets to our kids and telephones to our kids because they happen to shut up and we don't want to be a parent because we got to watch some bullshit, fixes in Super Bowl. If this Super Bowl of 2022 doesn't convince you, all the playoffs, if they don't convince you these games are fixed, then you are the most blinded human being I could point a finger at, right? I saw plays that were absolutely unbelievable. I don't even like sports, We got football players out there, at least half a dozen of them, taking interviews, telling you that the game is decided before the first ball is ever hiked, before even a player walks on the field. Then they give like a dozen examples during interviews. And what is it? It's the Westworld host reply. When the guy tells them the truth, the hosts just go, well, that doesn't sound like anything to me. They just can't even process the thought. They're in complete shock, complete denial that their entire life has basically been worshiping WWE, WWF stuff. And you remember when they told you wrestling was fake, everybody kept going after it like it was real. And that's okay if you know it's entertainment. But wrestling was the most perfect lubricant to screw society over when it really came down to, hey, we taught society to worship fake shit like it was real. So, hey, guess what? All these sports are fake as shit. Baseball is holding out. Maybe hockey's holding out. I don't know. But wherever a ref can control the game, wherever football players are being paid $100 million a year to control the game, it's fixed. Basketball's super easy, man. They could call a penalty on every single NFL play in the world. The illusion's all around you, and it's all around you constantly. We've got to get out of this illusion-worshipping bullshit. Otherwise, we don't deserve God's help. We don't deserve God to even come down maybe for a first time or second time and fix the whole planet. We don't deserve that. Which is why I mean, all I can say is, other than a nicely balanced nuclear family where the husband might say, honey, I got this under control. The men and I in the village have this under control. You ladies just take care of the most prized possession, which are these children right here, which is the hardest job in the entire village. We're going to form a militia or a posse, and we are going to clean out this problem that seems to be on us right now. Unless it's that situation, everybody should be invested in this thing at an adult level, in my opinion. And anyone saying, don't worry, we got it all handled. Okay. Imagine like a Wyatt Earp Tombstone situation. That's the easiest one I can pick out. They had a bad faction in the town, and they needed to go out and get rid of them, the good guys. Imagine that you liken Wyatt Earp to 17. And he walks in there, and a bunch of people have been killed and slaughtered in the town by this bad element. And he's got a little posse, or maybe a big posse, and he just tells all the victims of these murders, don't worry, man, we got it taken care of. And then he sits on his ass for 2 years. And the faction keeps coming around and keeps killing people and keeps killing people. And they do new things. They torture people. They do it right in front of you. And Wyatt Earp and his posse just sit on the side. Don't worry. Where we go one, we go all. Don't worry about it. Oh, well, in that blatant environment, you would not give that movement any hope. But because this movement fucking completely disappeared, right? It's like Wyatt Earp and the guys just left town. Right, the problem's right here. But this dude just left town with his posse, and then the townspeople are still suffering. It gets worse. New ways to kill everybody. New lies. They're taking control. They're reducing all your rights. All this other shit, and the town just sits there and goes, "Don't worry, Wyatt Earp's coming back." And some dude's in the background smoking a cigar, going, "I think they're all dead." And then all the beer bottles get thrown at them because they're an asshole for telling the truth. That's the situation we're in right now. Again, so there's some people in Ottawa who are not waiting for a movement. They are the movement. They are that acronym about where we go when we go all. They're all going. And now it's just a virus all around the world that people are starting to stand up, and they're starting to realize they can affect change. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to end with the politicians getting grabbed physically and thrown out of that place. But we are now at the second stage of this game, which we are identifying the police officers and military people who are going to go to hell. Okay, there's no two bones about it. There's a fucking express train straight to hell. The second they fucking die, it is a dark, scary, screamy place for them for the rest of their ages. I mean, it will just be their last names, their surnames, their families. If you're a kid of a cop in Ottawa who is hurting these folks trying to free up the country, doesn't matter if they get this, they rule the flesh game here on earth, right? Everyone's just dying to be a flesh being, right? It's like the soul's the best thing to be. I mean, we're in this Satanistic world where we want to just stay forever. Now I want to stay in this flesh body so I can be a victim of the devil. But if I became a soul, oh my God, I'm not a victim of the devil anymore because he can't coexist where I exist. So that's part of the just, I think, hilarity of the ruling class, man. They've got us all strung out on the prison, and we love it. We absolutely love it. And, I have to say, I've been guilty just probably every other day of my life of sort of going back and forth on this movement thing because people have basically pushed all their chips in on the movement. And if you try to guide them into us as human beings and God, they have this, it's a Kubler-Ross thing where they're in denial. They're in that first stage. Well, actually, they're in anger. But they're in anger denial. They're in this loop, the Kubler-Ross thing, and you can't get them to peel away. But you don't want to lose them. You don't want to say anything that's going to make them march away and then jump off a cliff, because then the bad guys win one more time. And so we're pussyfooting around this almost certainty that this is all a game. That 45 didn't lie when he said, I don't know anything about this, but I know what they stand for, but I don't know anything about who this is. I mean, God forbid the guy was telling the truth. But of course, people come in there. Once that movement stuck out the little bullshit excuse card, the get out of jail free card, which is really I don't have to have a rational thought card of saying, well, this info is sometimes necessary. Now, anything that you don't want to hear that blatantly proves that this is a bunch of bullshit, oh, well, now it's that card. They just pull out that card. All right, I don't have to listen to that one. This would have been one of the biggest projects on planet Earth. And I'll give you an analogy that I have to listen to all the time. When I started, I was debriefed by these two NASA guys, and then a whole string of events happens. I meet two different events, single individuals. They're at the highest clearance in the planet Earth, and we sit and we have conversations about the moon missions, and of course they're calling me names initially for saying we didn't go, and then after 5 minutes of me just splitting Occam's razor, I find out, one, that they're actually not that smart. They have no astrophysics, they have no physics, they have no rocketry in their backgrounds. They're just a stooge that's out there to do some fucking clerical thing, and they all caved right in front of me. Yeah, you're right, we didn't go, in so many words. I'm paraphrasing. But one of the classic defense mechanisms, where this card comes out, was that, well, you know what you're saying? Like, you're saying like 10,000 people would be all in on this thing, and there's too many people that have to be in on the moon missions for it to be fake. And that is the biggest bunch of bullshit. And it took me a while to realize how fucking stupid that statement is. If you just take the smallest interpretation of the number movement, you are talking about thousands of people knowing about it. You got a bunch of secret people at the top that are actually posting all that crap online for 3.5 years, and then you have tens of thousands of soldiers globally, even in the United States alone. Just the operations that are supposed to be going on in the United States alone would equal at least a couple thousand soldiers, okay? And what are 2,000 soldiers to a 1.5 million army? Nothing. Divide the little number by the big number and then move the decimal place to the right. That's your percentage of people that are doing the right thing. So if that number movement were to have any validity whatsoever, you're going to have to mobilize 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 just to get into the first double digit of a percentage, which for those of you bad at math would be 10%. So if all that's true and you want to hang on to that, and I don't blame you for being, confused, because everybody went through this phase, man. Everybody went through the phase with that thing, me included. I did it live on the show, right? Then we would know something by now, right? We would have Telegram videos of soldiers, even just at least a spouse or a friend of a friend of a cousin of a friend or whatever, saying this is exactly what they're doing. Instead, you get these bullshit articles online that all this super secret tunnel explosions and stuff are all happening. That, I don't know, just Gitmo, everybody's dead, man. Everybody who would ever threaten the world is already fucking dead in Gitmo. Oh, okay. All right, well, then I guess we're done. Then why are we still suffering from all this bullshit? Oh, because they're not dead, because nothing is fucking happening, right? Well, maybe something happens in the future, but we got to learn how to let go for now. And just consider them the cavalry that comes to back you up after we, the people, do whatever we can do to make things better, right? The thing is, if they're real, let's just say, for some reason, we don't understand the greater methodology of cleaning up the planet, which I don't think we actually have a problem with that. I think it is a now thing. You move now. Sting operation, my ass. If it's a sting operation, we wouldn't be going 1 year. Wano 7 threw all of his chips in again for January the 20th, saying, January 20th, the invaders of the country would have crossed over, the law of invading a country, and now the military can do something. Okay, I'm waiting. And he didn't say it was going to be fireworks because he knows he's full of shit. He knows he's lying about the whole thing. He's milking you for book sales and other shit, right? Again, beware of white men from 60 to 70. Because they will fucking say anything to get your attention. They fucking channel aliens. They travel with aliens. They're a Navy SEAL way back in the days. And boy, they were covert though, so they're not even in their buds class anymore. It's just all. It's not even a midlife crisis. It's like a late life crisis, and it's become this thing because of action movies and because men mature so late nowadays. As we mature late, we realize that had we been like we are when we're 40 or 50, when we were 20, maybe we would have been a Wyatt Earp, or we would have been, some rocker on some stage or something else. And so they try to recapture that before they die, to prove to themselves. And they get in a bar fight, and one punch later, they're knocked out for 10 minutes. But treat that movement like it doesn't exist. Disown it online, verbally. You don't have to be rude, but just disown it. And once that movement, if it were real, they had lost all the support of the people. And again, supposedly 45 is involved with this thing. Let's just say he's the plus sign, right? You show them online. You're not with the plan anymore. You're not with that bullshit. Fuck all that stuff. I gave you a chance to nut up and do something, and you did fucking fuck all. Nothing. We'll call their bluff. And hey, thing is, if they're fake, then we did the right thing. And we hastened the people's movement doing something. If they do exist and they see themselves losing all their base, well, maybe they'll step up to the plate and let their balls drop and actually do something. Either way, you win. Either way, you've done a healthy thing. You've hastened the movement of the good group. And again, there's nothing more Luciferian than using a computer to figure out when you should do what God would tell you what to do. You've abstracted yourself to an algorithm. So anybody out there talking about the simulation, which is that fucking 107 guy and Simon Parks, I don't have anything against them personally, but if they may even believe that horse shit, right? Because they, again, you just feed, I guess what, man, I know all the secrets, man. You should, you can tell people if you want to, but you're never going to have any evidence, And they may even believe it themselves. Maybe Lin Wood has been full of fucking shit the whole time. Not because Lin Wood's a bad guy, but maybe because he's been filled with it from some other source. Anytime he needs to see something, he's shown something. The pillow guy. Anytime he needs to see something, the guy was a fucking crack addict for fucking, 20, 30 years? God bless him, but you talk about a guy you could compromise and then have a controlled opposition against the guy. Make it look like you're always trying to shut the guy down, but you don't really give a shit. Again, like AJ said a long time ago, and I've repeated this dozens and dozens of times. If you can be around a poker game being played by the people who control the world, and you can insult them while they play the game. You can call them every aristocratic name on planet Earth. They'll laugh. They won't care. They'll ignore you. But the second you screw up the game, you say, oh, those two aces look pretty good, and the other guy across the table folds, you are dead. You are so dead so fast. So, if you have a bunch of resistance out there and they're still alive, I don't know how Joe Rogan's still alive, to be honest, right? I guess he's really just going super slow at the game, right? Maybe that's what you got to do. But no one could say that there's an episode that was missed that he airs, right? My show, nobody sees it, right? The big video channel that we use for this show, they have an algorithm on top of us. For every one of you that subscribes, they kick one person off. You're on, you're off. And then if we get a big push, 5 of you come on in, say, 2 hours. They knock 5 off in 10 hours. Thus, zero-sum game. And so I've had to fight for every one user that subs to this channel. They've probably knocked out 100. No, it's okay. I'm more of the guy that's going to whisper in your ear to consider an idea. Don't lose track of your own identity. Do your own research. Make up your own mind. And go get them. That's what we got to do. But just understand that these platforms have turned into a hypnotic trance. And I think most of you know that, but we got to start saying that. The more you use it, the more you become that kid in the I Pet Goat with the cord in the back of his head and the TV in his eyeballs. I Pet Goat 2 has probably our entire future in it for the next 100 years. The character that looks like Christ on the Anubis boat, that is your false religion. That's 100% getting you to worship a false religion. And he's in a trance too. He's guiding all the entranced people to the end of their life. And, of course, any prosperity at the end of the cartoon, it's not for you. It's for them. And so many of us allow ourselves to be used to give them what they want. It's absurd. I think you feel me. Well, if you have joined us all the way to the end, thank you so much. I do appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. If you haven't liked and subscribed, try that little trick. But on the website, we have everything: audio, video, social media, all new remastered season 1, a store. And for those of you who want to contribute, and I want to thank folks coming in from PayPal. Again, there's no way for me to communicate with you after you donate through PayPal, so I do apologize. There's no way for me to say thank you. But for those of you who stay on Patreon, I really appreciate it. It's just one tier. You get in, you get the episodes typically before any others. As I start to slow down, as I'm dealing with my move, and I typically take a month-long break after a season. I didn't take one this last round. The episodes will come out more immediately, but once we start coming into the more conspiratorial ones that are fun, they'll start loading up there first for a day, and then it goes out public. But anyway, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out.